Hello, Alabama fans, and welcome to the BOL, the Bama Online Big Show. It's the one show we do where we bring on all the BOL talent. Charlie Potter is here with us today. He's our team writer, does a great job of bringing his impact and obviously all the quotes. And this has been the busiest time for Charlie ever because he used to just have one guy to get quotes from, and now there's like 50 and players. So new trend for Charlie. Later on in the show, we'll have Blake Byler joining us, Jimmy Stein, Andrew Bone, our recruiting editor, and of course Joseph Hastings. So right now we're going to start with Charlie. And again, I'm your host Tim Watts, and appreciate you being here with us. Charlie, it's Georgia week. It's a big one. We've been waiting for this since the schedule was announced.
Yeah, it's always exciting when these two teams linked up. But we were talking before we recorded. You don't really get to see it that much in the regular season. Here lately, it's been for an SEC championship, or hell, they've played for national championships. So when they meet in the regular season, it's a big deal. And I don't think. I mean, I know we're going to get into the show. It's not a make or break for either team. But having this still in the month of September, it's really exciting. It should be a fun week in Tuscaloosa. It's going to be a busy weekend, no doubt, but it should be a lot of fun.
I tell you what makes it even more exciting is how bad last week's games really were. I mean, I know the USC and Michigan game was competitive and a fun game, but really there was just some ugly football. There wasn't a lot of ranked teams. You didn't see a whole lot of stuff going on. So I think people just that like sports, that like college football, and I'm assuming there's still some out there that they'll be excited about this game.
Yeah, I mean, with USC Michigan, that's a helmet game for sure. Beyond that, I mean, I think everybody expected Tennessee to go into Oklahoma and do what they did. But this is, I mean, when you think about this new era of college football with the playoff and everything, when Alabama and Georgia meet, man, it's a big deal. And so, hopefully, it'll live up to the expectations. I think it will be. It should be a hard fight game, but I think just the buildup around it is, I mean, it's going to continue to ramp up as the week progresses. But yeah, last week, I mean, we talked about it. You and I did. I didn't watch a ton of football on Saturday. Tried to get away, but when I did check my phone, yeah, it was a little boring.
Yeah. So let's talk about what happened during the off week. That off week for the Alabama staff, the coaches, the players. How lax is it compared to what it'll be this week?
It's funny that you say that because I just posted some photos that UA sent out of practice on Thursday and Friday, and I think in both of those threads on the board, people were surprised because that was their first and second practice of the week, and they're just like, "What the hell are we doing?" And I had to play not devil's advocate, but like talk them off the ledge a little bit. I was like, well, look, back when Coach Saban was leading Alabama, they practiced 3 days and then got them out of there. Heck, most of the time it fell on fall break, so they got like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they were off for the rest of the week. So they don't practice so much in the bye week. I mean, it's a bye week for a reason. You don't want to drive your players in the ground. And Kalen DeBoer's made a good point because this is different with having two bye weeks and having an early one. They've had four straight weeks of preseason practice, three straight games, 7 straight weeks of football. The guys deserve a little break, and they didn't practice on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. They hit the practice field on Thursday, Friday. They gave them Saturday off, and then Sunday they were back to work. So it's still pretty much the same. I know you guys were on it. The coaching staff was able to get out and do some recruiting on Friday. But we had interviews, they had practice. It was business as usual, just a little different as things have been this year.
Yeah, I think fans are going to have to adjust to how early in the season this is. If you're the national champion, this is super early for that team. Anybody playing that national championship game, there's a lot of football ahead of you. You don't want to beat anybody down. You want to injure them. You don't want to burn them out. There's still a lot left to deal with. How do you think that off time benefited the Alabama players?
I think it did. He kind of mentioned it in his opening, and this is kind of what you would expect, but it gives them a chance to get a little healthier. And that's not just the guys that are being asked about specifically. I think as a whole team, there's bumps and bruises that you pick up along the way. But specifically about the guys I know everybody is interested in, it sounds like it was a beneficial week for Malachi Moore. He was able to get back on the practice field after being in concussion protocol. after suffering a concussion in the Wisconsin game, and all signs point to him being back. So that's huge against a Georgia team that has some veteran presence on the offensive side of the ball. But with Quay Russaw, it's not strange to hear Kalen DeBoer say he's optimistic. I think he's optimistic about a lot of things. That's just his approach to life. But given what we've heard, with what happened with Quay, for him to be dealing with kind of a couple of things, for him to be optimistic about this game, I think is promising. So we'll see with that. Cole Adams and Richard Young are kind of in the same boat, kind of working them along. But I think just from an overall health standpoint, that's kind of what you look at during the bye week, of getting guys back, getting them healthy, giving them some time off too. And I think for Alabama, that was advantageous.
Yeah, and I'll go even a little bit further. Like with Proctor, it's his first game action of the year. You go to the gym for the first time in 2 months, you're probably pretty sore. And Pritchett had been a little bit banged up, so you get them through a game and they come up and they're able to rest and then get ready, obviously, for a very physical opponent. Georgia, where does this game rank? I mean, we'll know more after, but where does this game, regular season game, rank on the games you've covered in your career? The hype factor, top five teams. Where does this rank? Or do give us an idea of that?
I was trying to think about it. That 2019 Georgia game or LSU game, sorry, it kind of has the same feel as that.
Oh
That's
wow,
that's a top five matchup. You have a former president coming to the stadium. There's going to be a ton of people at the game. It feels like that one. And with LSU, Alabama and LSU play every season, so that one's a matchup that, while there's a lot of big games in that, I think the rarity of playing Georgia, on campus kind of adds to it. I think, with you having no Nick Saban, Kirby Smart going against Alabama the first time without Coach Saban, I think that's the storyline in and of itself. Kalen DeBoer's first SEC game being Georgia, welcome to the league, big guy. That's a
right.
tough welcome. But I think there are some others. I thought about that 2013 A&M game at A&M, kind of the back and forth between AJ McCarron and Johnny
That was
Manziel after Johnny came to Tuscaloosa and won. There was a lot around that game, and that game was just pretty intense in College Station. Um, Beyond that, though, I mean, it's tough. I mean, there've been some big ones, but the regular season, I think the 2019 LSU game is kind of what I compare it to. And with this one, like you said, hindsight will prove me wrong or right here. But I think just it being earlier in the season, and this being kind of the first true test for both of these teams, we're going to learn a lot about them. But this isn't a make or break game for either team, like I said earlier.
Yeah, I think the 12-team playoff takes a little bit from it. I do think this means more to Georgia than Alabama, oddly enough, because they still have Tennessee, Ole Miss. Um, who am I
Texas,
forgetting? Texas.
Texas,
I mean, they've
yeah.
got three. Not that obviously they're number one team, number two team, so they're going to be in there. But this is not their normal regular season schedule, so there's a lot more going on for them. I mean, I think it means something to both teams. Also, you've got the media playing the. Are they going to take Are they officially going to hand off the dynasty to Georgia? You got that whole angle. I was searching for baton. Are they going to hand off the baton to Georgia? We've already heard that before at the national championship. Then Alabama ended their three-peat attempt. So I mean, I think regardless, this is two teams we're going to see in the future playing each other. Um, regardless of what goes on and what's coming up. Um, Touching on the previous Alabama and Georgia game, give us some thoughts on some of your memories. We had a thread on the board on the Bama Online Roundtable, just some thoughts and memories from those games. What stood out to you in your time doing this?
Yeah, they're a little strange because there'll be some that are blowouts. I think of that 2015 game in Athens. That was a fun game, even though it was soaking wet.
Yeah, it was a
It felt like
mess.
it rained every second I was in the state of Georgia that weekend.
Mm.
But that one was a little different because it was a blowout. You think of the blackout game in 2008, but then the rest of them have been, they've been fights. I mean, the biggest game, the best game, the most interesting game that I've ever covered is the national championship game, the second and 26 with Tua Smitty. I just remember, I think I punched Travis in the arm and we just started laughing in the press box after that play happened, because you see the sack on first down. It's a 16-yard loss. And you're thinking, well, okay, let's change this
Yeah.
game story up a little bit. And then that happens. It's still kind of surreal to think about. And then you turn around the next year, and then Jalen Hurts comes and saves the day in the SEC championship game. There's been a lot of just memorable moments between these two teams. And, I mean, you look at the Saban era, what they played 10 times. Alabama won 8 of those. The first one they lost, and they lost in the national championship game. But Alabama's had Georgia's number. And I think kind of going back to what you were talking about, can they keep that up with a new head coach? And I think Kalen DeBoer and this staff are eager to accept that challenge. We'll see what plays out on the field on Saturday. But I don't think that passing the baton that you mentioned, I don't think DeBoer and company are necessarily ready to do that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, that's 2nd and 26. I mean, you and I are cinema guys. If that was in a movie, we'd go, get the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The fact that Tua came because Jake Fromm flipped, and the fact they fired Pruitt, Alabama hired him, and Smitty came, and it was Tua to Smitty. I mean, literally, it's a storyline we couldn't. I mean, that in itself is a movie. With that said, we want you guys to do us a favor, hit that like and subscribe button, especially subscribe. We appreciate the content. You guys, you watching us, if you appreciate the content, jump in there. We'll keep that going. And now we're going to bring in Jimmy Stein to join us.
Hey.
Hello, Jimmy Stein. How are you doing?
Hey, good, guys. How are y'all?
Great, man.
Hey, good. I know Jimmy's been listening in. Jimmy, we're just going over some of the recap of this game and playing this game early. What are your thoughts? I mean, it's the game of the year already, obviously, in week 4, but there haven't been a lot of great games. But at the end of the day, this could still be the game of the year along with Texas or Georgia. I mean, this has long-reaching implications as far as, hey, that was our one, that was our one our one pass we got.
It really is what separates college football from NFL, even with the 12-team playoff. The Lions and the Chiefs open the NFL season, and they're a lot of people's favorites to meet in the Super Bowl, Detroit versus Kansas City. And that's a big game because it's the start of the NFL season. But it didn't have implications like Alabama, Georgia. College football still has September games with major implications. And there's absolutely no doubt this is the headlining game for September. And as Tim said, might prove to be the headlining game all season long, where number 2 meets number 4. The implications are huge. They're not what they used to be. Can you imagine what this game would be like in the BCS era, where it's just down to the top 2 to make the play? Basically, we'd be talking all week how this is an elimination game, and it practically would have been an elimination game even with the 14 playoff. Now no one's going to talk about it in those terms. When the game's over Saturday night, I would tell you guys, I'm sure y'all both agree, the loser of this game will still be favored to make the playoff by the odds makers. But whoever loses this game is going to have a steeper hill to climb than the winner.
Yeah, you lose your mulligan. I'm having trouble with my baton and mulligan examples today. I'm completely drawing a blank, but yeah, I agree with that. I think it's huge. I mean, people are all saying the same thing. It's not that big a deal. You want to win, but it's not the end of the season. But I tell you what, Saturday night, there's going to be some pissed off people and some people celebrating one way or the other. Your excitement level, I'm beyond excited for this game. I'm beyond excited to see 2 teams and the matchups and the Kirby Smart connection, Kalen DeBoer connection. Nick Saban's probably going to be in that game possibly somewhere, which would be interesting. Charlie, your excitement level, just to see the game overall and to cover the game.
Yeah, I mean, I would be shocked if Coach Saban's not there. I mean, game day's been away from Tuscaloosa for the first 2 home games, but he still made it back to watch them. So I think being in his backyard, he's definitely going to be there. But it's exciting. Games like this, I don't want to say they don't come around very often, but an on-campus game. Another one I guess I should have mentioned was last year's Texas game. That one felt big. Getting Texas on campus before they got to the SEC.
Yeah,
it feels bigger than that though. Just because I am excited for the game. I'll be more excited once I get to my seat in the press box.
yeah.
I might need to start heading over there right now, given the security and everything that's going to be going on at the stadium. But I think it should be a lot of fun. The fact that it's at night under the lights in prime time. It doesn't get much better than this in college football. And I'm really hoping that it lives up to the hype we're kind of building around it, but I have a feeling it's going to.
Jimmy, your excitement level. I think I know. I think if I think hard, I might know, but go ahead and surprise me.
I'm excited. I'm not excited about the line to get in. Unlike Charlie, watches the games in the box, I'll be amongst the throng of fans. So I'm not excited about
Now, does that change at all security wise? Does it change
massive,
for media
massive.
versus?
Oh, I don't know because I haven't been to the box.
No,
Charlie,
we're asking. Yeah, let's ask Charlie. Does that change a lot, or is it in security, or how does that work?
When you have a former president show up, you have the Secret Service involved. So I know in the past we've had to like line up our backpacks, and they have drug dogs come and sniff them, and other kind of dogs. I don't know exactly what the
I hope
dogs are
Andrew's
smelling
not
for.
going.
I
Might
know.
be the last we see him for about 90 days.
I think it's more so for weapons than drugs, so bones should be good.
that's
But
the funniest thing.
Well, I'm glad Joseph's not going.
That's the funniest thing in
I
BOL
think
history.
other than that, like it's tough to remember everything that goes into it. But yeah, you got to get there early. I know for fans though, it'll be increased too, and their line is going to be much longer because there's more.
Yeah, I would normally for 6:30 kick. My normal standard thing is I would want to be in line in the stadium at 6 o'clock. 6:00 is when I want to get in line for a 6:30 kickoff. Speaking for myself, I have to bump that all the way up to 5 o'clock because of what's going to be happening with the extra security.
When you give me a matchup, Charlie, give me one matchup you're watching. It could be position or player. Give us a matchup that you're watching in this game. And I know, and also we're going to have the Bama Online game preview with, obviously Charlie Potter, Jimmy Stein, and Blake Byler, who will be coming on after this segment. Give us just a small dose of what you're thinking when it comes to matchups.
I think first things first, you got to think about just getting pressure on Carson Beck because he's been efficient. He doesn't have any turnovers. Georgia doesn't really turn the ball over at all. So I think maybe trying to force him into the poor decisions is big. You look at that offensive line for Georgia, no Tate Ratledge. I think that's big in this game. He's not a tackle, so it's not necessarily like an edge rusher is going to be facing him a ton. You could have some stunts and things like that to match up on him, but it's a Georgia offensive line that isn't healthy. It isn't at full strength. So I think taking advantage of that, getting pressure on Carson Beck is huge, and maybe force him into some interceptions because this is a defense that is aggressive. It's advantageous whenever the ball's in the air. I think that they've had more turnover opportunities but haven't cashed in on them. If they can take that to the bank this week, that's huge. So I think we've talked a lot about Carson Beck. We're going to continue to throughout this week because he's going to be a guy that's going to be a day one draft pick. But if you can pressure him, make him uncomfortable back there in the pocket, I think guys like Q Robinson, Keanu Kute, those defensive linemen, heck, Jahad Campbell, the inside backers, if they can make his day a little less comfy, I think that this could be a big win for Alabama.
Yeah, and I agree. And the one thing you touched on is that ball chase is Keon Saab. You know what I mean? He is around that football constantly. I mean, he's had several, plays already, and then obviously hope you have Malachi to come back. Jimmy, give us one matchup. Jimmy, now you struggle with the ones. One matchup. Don't lay out the whole too deep right here and start with the center versus the nose guard. Give me one that's because y'all are going to break it down tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the show will be up later in the week. So give us one, Jimmy Stein.
Okay, that's hard. That's really hard for me to do. But how about Michael Williams versus Caden Proctor? I think is absolutely massive in this game. Caden Proctor knocked the rust off. Was, I thought, outstanding against Wisconsin, considering there was no spring practice for him. He's got a different body. He's playing probably a little gimped up, to be honest. I mean, a guess on my part would be he's not 100% due to the shoulder situation yet. I thought he was great against Wisconsin. Okay, now's the big boy test. Not only is it an SEC game, not only is it Georgia, he's going up against a guy that's very likely to be a first-round pick in this next draft, an NFL talent who's almost NFL ready. Now, that kid's coming off injury himself. He may not be at 100%, but to me, it's the biggest single matchup in the game. If I'm an NFL scout, I'm watching. I know Proctor's still a year away from the draft, but that's a great NFL-type matchup, Michael Williams versus Caden Proctor.
Yeah, I tell you, Charlie touched on mine, but I'm really interested to see Tim Keenan, LT Overton, because without Tate Ratledge, what did we figure out when Tyler Booker wasn't at guard? It was hard to run that game when you kicked him outside. So without Tate Ratledge, even being an inside game, you want to establish the run you know what I mean? Especially if you're Carson Beck, because Carson doesn't have the wheels Jalen does, but you want to run between the tackles. You don't want this to be a 45-44 game anyway. So I think that's the one thing I'm watching. Tim's been a man, and he draws attention. If they've got to get a guard over there to help him, you're going to have backers running free, I think, or you're going to have LT Overton reminded them he's from the state of Georgia. Charlie, give us a final thought. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Charlie. You got something?
I was going to add to that because, like, with Georgia,
Sure.
they're the only SEC team that doesn't have over 100 rushing attempts, which I know, they've put up a lot of points. They score pretty quickly, but their run game is, when you look at just the stats, and I know it's early, you got to factor in competition schedule. They're kind of middle of the road in terms of a rush offense. So you take away a veteran player like Tate Ratledge, and yeah, like you said, it could be interesting. And I think Tim Keenan's a guy we probably don't talk about enough. I think he's actually going to come up for interviews today, but he's had a hell of a season. And if he continues this, he's a guy that his stock is going to continue to climb. So, yeah, I think that's a good one. I don't want to give you too much praise there, but that was a good one.
That's the first ever. Is anybody recording this?
I think you
I
are.
will say a quick note recruiting-wise. Tim Keenan's kind of what recruiting, and, we say defensive line is developmental. We talk about Tim Keenan. Everybody's not coming in. And I like to say, ready to go against Landon Dickerson. You're not 17, 18, 19 years old ready to fist fight that dude, And it would be the same for a freshman with Tate Ratledge. Jimmy, give us a final thought before we get out of here, and then I'll circle back to you, Charlie Potter.
Yeah, I think a major indicator in this game, if I wake up Sunday morning and pull up the team stats and look at one number and not look at the scoreboard and tells me who won the game, is rushing yards. I have a very, very difficult time believing Alabama can win unless they run the ball well. They don't have to rush for 300 yards. They might not even have to rush for 220 yards. But Alabama's got to be able to move the ball on the ground with Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, and Jalen Milroe. They've got to have rushing success. And if Georgia has none and it's just Carson Beck throwing the ball, I don't think that's enough for Georgia to win either. Whoever outrushes the other, if Georgia outrushes Alabama, I don't think we have to look at the scoreboard to know who won the game. To me, that's the indicator in terms of who's going to come out on top.
Charlie Potter, give us one final thought before we get out of here.
I agree with Jimmy, but I also think another indicator for this one is just a turnover margin. Georgia takes care of the ball. Alabama's been advantageous when it comes to forcing those, but they need to cash in on those, like I said earlier. And so I think Georgia's +3, and Alabama's right there at 0 because they've had some turnovers on offense. If they clean those up and then they force Georgia into some mistakes, like Jimmy said, you don't really have to look at the scoreboard. I think it'll be good news for Alabama.
All right, guys. Well, you can find Charlie Potter and Jimmy Stein on the BamaOnline.com roundtable today. That's the BOL message board that's very active. We have a lot going on. Also, we should mention we got a 50% off of the annuals for Georgia Week. We got 50% off. You can get that at BamaOnline.com. That's also where you can find all of Jimmy and Charlie Potter's content. But right here's the only place you can see their faces, their smiles. Look at Charlie Potter. That's 2 weeks in a row I got him to smile. He'll never smile again. Look at him. He's locking it down right now.
Trying to make it.
Well, guys, we appreciate you being on the show, and we'll see you next week. And we're looking forward to that BOL Georgia preview. Well, look at here. What is happening? Welcome in, Blake Byler. Welcome in, Andrew Bone. Finally got his hat broken in. He's been working on that about 3 weeks to get the right break.
It wasn't even the new one.
Well, then why are you working on the break?
I'm not.
I'm waiting for your fish hook to go on that bill, for being honest. Well, guys, it's Georgia Week. Blake, how excited are you? You're younger, haven't covered as many games. Not newer to the beat than the rest of us. How excited are you Charlie Potter's a veteran. Jimmy's been watching these games for a long time. I have, Andrew has. We're all excited. What is it like for you to be covering a game like this?
Yeah, man, I'm really excited because I'm used to seeing these games at home on the couch, games of these magnitude. Really the biggest game that I've covered up to this point, I would say is the Rose Bowl from last season. But then even before that, the Texas game kind of to start in week 2 of last season. Those were really big games. The Rose Bowl was massive, and that kind of blew me away with the pageantry and just kind of how big it felt. But when you look back at some of the bigger games in Tuscaloosa in the past, like the 2019 LSU game that Charlie mentioned earlier, even the 2011 game of the century. Like I wasn't covering any of those games. I didn't go to any of those games with family or friends or anything like that. So just to be there and to witness kind of the atmosphere, I'm really excited about, because I know Bryant-Denny kind of gets its flack for the energy in kind of the lesser games, whether it's Vanderbilt coming to town or they're blowing out South Carolina or something like that. But when you see Bryant-Denny against the top 5 LSU team, Texas, Tennessee, or in this case, Georgia, it's going to be an atmosphere unlike anything else. And so I'm really excited for it. It's what college football is about. And it's why you want to do this job. It's why you want to go cover college football, is to go and be able to witness games like this. So I'm really excited.
Sure. Andrew Bone, what's your excitement level? You'll be there in attendance?
Very excited. I mean, it's obviously a huge game. There's so many different storylines. I think my personal storyline is my college buddies are all finally getting together for the first time in about 17 years for one big reunion on campus this weekend. So that's pretty exciting for me. But so I'll stop by and see those guys for a little bit. It doesn't happen very often, so good to see them. But as far as the game is concerned, it's going to be exciting. I mean, 6 p.m. kickoff, ABC. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, a lot of build-up. And, once the game's here, I mean, it's going to be loud. It's going to be intense. And, can't wait to see what happens.
Andrew, sticking with you, coming the recruiting angle. I mean, we're working on that visitors list. You can find that at BamaOnline.com. Andrew added a couple of huge names this morning alone, and they keep trickling in. I mean, I think we had 40 coming into this week, and these are confirmed. We had another 200 that wanted to go, and there's not enough hotels to host everybody, every kid that wants to come in, though. But just a huge visitor weekend overall, numbers-wise.
Yeah, numbers-wise, it's more about talent than really overall numbers, because Alabama's always going to have about 100 overall recruits on its campus, and a lot of times it's they're trying to fill up space for some of those smaller games. But for the Georgia game, you got guys that you're trying to get them to commit and confirm weeks in advance, and a lot of kids from all across the country have told Alabama they're going to be in town for this game. There's still a few that are still trying to set up some travel arrangements and try to get some flights confirmed, but we're going to have kids from really coast to coast at this game, whether it's California, South Florida, Pennsylvania, really so many top kids that are going to be in attendance. And it's probably one of the most stacked visitor lists that we have seen for a big game. And we've covered Alabama football games for a long time, and we've covered recruiting for a long time. We've seen some big games. We've seen that Alabama LSU game in 2012, Alabama LSU in 2019. We've seen a lot of big games with a lot of high-end recruits. This is one of the games that could go down as one of the top 3 as far as recruiting lists that we've seen in the last 20 plus years.
Blake, what do you think? 11 a.m. kickoffs, 2:30 kickoffs, 6:30 kickoffs. Because I was reading, like, the LSU fans are livid. They had like 100 people treated for heat exhaustion this week, and I kind of grew up on these games where 2:30. I mean, you obviously didn't, but me and Andrew, he's a little bit older than me, but we're in the same range where we 2:30 game was the game you had to be there for. Now it's changed to night. Covering it or as a fan, because it's 6:30 is a long time to wait to get to the game. You know what I mean? I'd rather the thing be over at 11. I know how my emotions are going to be. Blake, what are your thoughts on the timing of these games?
Yeah, I've got a couple different opinions. I love that this game is a night game, because I feel like these big games between 2 top 5 teams, whatever, like, you want a night game. You want a primetime atmosphere for games like that. When it comes to me personally, I don't mind a nice 11 a.m. kickoff, because that gets us done with work earlier in the day.
Sure.
And so we're done. Instead of, like, this Saturday, we'll be in Bryant-Denny until probably to 2:30 in the morning, whereas an 11 a.m. game, we're done around dinner. So that's a little different. But also, whenever you get later in the season, into kind of late October, November, I do love that 2:30 kickoff, because once you get into the fourth quarter, the sun's kind of gone down and it's gone from an afternoon to a night game. I think of a lot of those Iron Bowls from the mid 2010s that would start at 2:30 and then they'd be close. And by the fourth quarter, it's the feel of a night game because the sun's gone down because of the time change and everything like that. So I think there are positives to every kickoff time, but the anticipation of building up all day for a big game of this magnitude, for it being a night game, the stadium is going to be rocking. Like, I think prime time is perfect for a game like this. And I think it's a big positive too from the SEC's move from CBS to ABC, is because now their biggest games are going to be put in prime time rather than 2:30. And I know a lot of people like that 2:30 slot, but just the anticipation and build up of that night game is going to be special. And Alabama's going to get to play a lot more because with the old CBS contract, they only had one primetime game a year. And Alabama was playing in so many big games. They would usually get it, but you would really only get one big primetime game a season unless you got one early in the season on CBS or on ESPN or something like that. So now with ABC, you get a lot more of them, and I think it's really exciting.
I missed the 2:30 game because it got me out of a lot of chores, stuff I had to do. I mean, that game's not kicking off till 6 or 6:30. There's a whole day to tell me what I need to do. Andrew Bone, I want you to give me your thoughts, and I'll circle back to you, Blake. Give me a guy for Alabama, one guy for Alabama you think can be the difference on offense. Who can have a big game? Who can change the tone of that? Can be anybody on that offense. One guy you think that you're looking for who could have a big game that could change the outcome or put it in Bama's favor.
Yeah, I'm going to go with somebody that can score some points rather than just straight up offense, and I'm going to go with Graham Nicholson. Alabama was able to bring in Graham Nicholson from Miami of Ohio, Luke Rosa Award winner. Got an opportunity to go in against Wisconsin and just miss his only attempt of the season. So going into this game, I think Alabama and Georgia, both of the defenses are they can bend, don't break. You don't want to, both of these teams can keep opponents out of the end zone. So you're going to have some opportunities to kick some field goals. Last year, Alabama wins the game 27-24. Will Reichard hits two clutch field goals, two for two on field goals. So you can get Graham Nicholson to be accurate, drill some kicks. He can be the difference maker in this game. You brought him in for a reason. We saw what Upton Belafonte did last week at Buffalo. He transferred out from Alabama. Kind of has the same hairstyle as Blake, but that's a guy that dropped the double birds on Northern Illinois last week to pull that upset. So you're looking for this weekend who's going to be that difference maker. I think Graham Nicholson coming in can be the big weapon for Alabama on offense this week.
Blake, give us one guy.
I'm going to go with Jam Miller, running back, because I think Jimmy was mentioning it earlier that the run game is very important when it comes to kind of deciding the outcome of this game. And I think Alabama's going to have to run the ball well to win the game. And I think running the ball well is what Alabama does. When it comes to Jalen Milroe, obviously he's a huge part of that with his legs. But you look at the matchup last season in the 2023 SEC championship game, and he didn't run the ball particularly well for a lot of yards, so to speak. I mean, he had a couple nice runs to seal the game on the last drive that ended in the kneel down whenever they were looking to run the clock out. But overall, I think he only had about 30 yards rushing. So they were good at getting him down whenever he was able to scramble. But when it comes to the way that Alabama was run blocking in that game, I think that was the most impressive thing from that SEC championship game. And we need to see that for Alabama carry over in this game. Georgia didn't play the run entirely well against Kentucky 2 weeks ago. I think Kentucky was at like 5 or 6 yards a carry. So for Alabama to have success offensively, you want to keep them out of that 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, and which forces Milroe to have to make maybe some throws he's uncomfortable with, especially against a Georgia defense that has Malachi Starks and guys like that on the back end. So Alabama's going to need to run the ball well. Jam Miller has been their best running back so far this season. And if he has a big game, if he has a, 15, 16 carries and he's pushing 100, 110, 120 yards. If he's able to run the ball that well and that consistently, which he's been able to do this whole season, and part of that is also this Alabama offensive line having success against this Georgia defensive front, which is a little banged up. I think if Jam Miller has a big game on the ground, that's going to open up a whole bunch of things, and it would be very important for Alabama putting up a bunch of points in this game.
I'm going to make it simple and go with James Burnett because I think points are going to matter. Field position is going to matter. You don't want your defense near midfield. You want to keep them inside the 20. Goes basically hand in hand with everything y'all said. Try to get points on the board. Try to move the ball and burn the clock. I think both teams are going to have a similar mindset. Blake, 30 seconds. Give me your final thoughts before we bring in JoJo Hastings. Give us your final thoughts.
I think just kind of on the flip side of the run game, I think if Alabama is able to stop the run and stop Georgia's run offense, that's going to be the key because Carson Beck has been he's really accurate. He's a really accurate quarterback and going up against these young Alabama DBs. He's going to have a couple chances to hit some passes, but Alabama would much rather him be operating out of third and long situations rather than Georgia picking up 6-7 yards a carry, him being able to operate in second and short, and that kind of opens up everything that Georgia can do offensively. So if Alabama is able to defend the run and keep Georgia in third and long in obvious passing downs, we know that Carson Beck has struggled under pressure a little bit, and that was one of the reasons that Alabama had success back in December in the SEC championship game. They were able to get after him. He didn't throw an interception, but I think he threw 4 very interceptable passes in that game. And that was all because Alabama was able to get pressure on him and get him rattled. But Alabama's not going to be able to do that if Georgia's just running the ball down their throat the whole game. And run defense has been a struggle for this Alabama defense so far, especially against Wisconsin. So if Alabama can defend the run well, kind of force Georgia into those obvious passing downs, that's going to be huge as far as getting stops and keeping Georgia off the board.
All right, Bama Online people, you can find Blake's content on BamaOnline.com. If you guys have not signed up for BamaOnline.com, now's as good a time as any. We got Georgia coverage, 50% off the annual sub. Also, if you have not liked and subscribed, please do so. We appreciate all you guys being here. Blake, we look forward to seeing you with the fellas on the Georgia game preview later in the week.
All right, thanks, guys.
See you, man.
See you, Blake.
We got Joseph Hastings in the house.
What's going on, guys?
Joseph Hastings? You doing all right? Joseph looks rattled like he didn't know we were coming in.
Yeah. I was expecting it to be 1 second later, so it caught me a little bit off guard. But
all right, we're gonna let you catch up before we get started. Let us know when you're ready.
Oh yeah, I'm good. Let's go.
Speaking of catching people off guard, Caleb Cunningham caught some people off guard with his comments. Caleb Cunningham, the 5-star wide receiver from Mississippi, took a visit to Auburn this week, and our Auburn recruiting analyst Jeffrey Lee, our recruiting writer, had an update with Caleb, which I thought was pretty interesting, right, Joseph?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Caleb came right out and said he didn't see what he wanted to see, especially from the quarterbacks. Auburn had 4 interceptions combined between Peyton Thornton and Hank Brown, and he did say that the receivers played well, but he said that they didn't know what they wanted to do from a quarterback standpoint, and that kind of caught him off guard and wasn't really what he wanted to see. Meanwhile, you've got somebody like Keelan Russell committed in Alabama's class, who he mentioned in that interview with Auburn reporters, and also saying that Auburn doesn't have anybody committed in this class. So that's the one thing you kind of appreciate about Caleb Cunningham. I've spoken with him multiple times over the past 12 or so months. I know, Bone, you've spoken with him too. He's pretty honest. He's going to kind of tell you how he's feeling at any given point in his recruitment or after a visit or whatever. So we appreciate that honesty.
Andrew and I grew up raised in this business with kids that were very honest. Like, they would tell you stuff and you'd have to say, whoa, do you want that on the record? And they're like, sure. Or we'd have to protect them from themselves. We've seen back-to-back pretty honest interviews with Michael Carroll saying, hey, I want to get what I'm worth, which is what everybody's thinking. It's what everybody's talking about in that office. He just said the unspoken thing. And then we saw Caleb Cunningham. I mean, Joseph, we grew up, I remember I asked Jason Swain from Huntsville. He ended up going to Tennessee. I asked him if him and Brody Kroll were close. And he said, I like him, but I don't know if I can trust him with my wallet. And I thought it was the funniest thing, Aaron. Of course, you could trust Bro. If you can trust anybody with your wallet, it was Brody, right, Andrew? Andrew played ball with Brody, so
Well, no, Brody used to come to my house in high school, and just if I had a new shirt, he'd be like, "Let me borrow that for a day." And
we got to get Brody Crow on this show because we got to
never see it
fact
again.
check. We
Yeah,
got to
no,
fact check some of these Andrew Bone
He'd
stories.
come on here and he'd be like, "Yeah, I still got that Marmot vest from back in 2001."
Because Andrew's always told us that he was going to be the starting quarterback, but he actually wanted to play wide receiver because he was better than Brody. I would like that. I would like that confirmed. All right, Andrew, we got the Georgia week. We got the massive visitors list. You added a big name today. Now, you didn't know it was a big name. You didn't know why it was a big name. I had to explain to him. But tell us who you added this morning and what makes him a little bit different than the rest of the recruits.
Yeah, so I think our list is already over 50 recruits, and we've been adding.
Climbing.
Yeah, it's going to continue to climb. We've got some big names that we've added over the course of the last 24 hours, including some this morning. One happened to be Jet Washington, who is the number one player in the state of Nevada for the 2026 class. He's out of Bishop Gorman High School. Many people know that, one of the top high school programs in the country. But he's going to be in town, recruited as an athlete. He's 6'4", 190 pounds, plays safety, plays wide receiver. But Alabama, really likes him, pretty much as an athlete right now. Just going to
who is he? Tell me that.
I'm getting there.
I had to explain. I want you to.
Nephew,
you're going to forget it again.
He is the nephew of a former guest speaker for the Alabama.
That's how you refer to this man, a former guest speaker. Wow, Joe, how do I block
players in history? Kobe Bryant. So Jet Washington, Kobe Bryant's nephew. His mother is Kobe Bryant's sister. So spoke to him.
Pretty awesome.
Spoke to him late last night. He said he's going to be, as of right now, planning to be in Tuscaloosa this weekend. We know that can potentially change, but as of right now, plans on getting to Tuscaloosa this weekend. Really excited, and he's not the only guy that we've added in the last 24 hours. So go check out that list on BOL right now.
I thought Bo was going to go to a commercial and keep us more in suspense. I mean, he kept on going. One of the greatest basketball.
I think he was Googling. I think he was Googling, going, "Is he Wilt Chamberlain's nephew? Is he Matt? Who was he?" Yes, I think that's pretty cool. And again, you pointed out the connection I was going to make, that he spoke to the Alabama team. Obviously, Kobe's a legend as a basketball player, but to get his nephew out here. Joseph, pick a name we've got on our list. Tell us a little bit of guy you're excited about coming, and do not say Justice Terry, or I'll be doing a solo show.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Justice Terry. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going with Anthony Tank Jones. Look, I think the one thing we need to put that in context with this weekend is, yes, it's Alabama versus Georgia, but also Auburn has a pretty big game coming in with Oklahoma. I know the game lost a little bit of luster with Oklahoma not winning against Tennessee and struggling the way they did, and Auburn losing 2 games on the season already. But Auburn's going to get some players on campus for that game. But Anthony Tank Jones is the number one player in the state of Alabama for the 2026 class. The nickname Tank is well warranted. 6'4", around 240 pounds. And he's a junior, so expect to add more weight by the time he graduates. I think he's a really exciting player. He's very versatile. His team, St. Paul's Episcopal in Mobile, uses him in a variety of ways off the edge. D-line, hand in the dirt. Can sometimes play in space as a linebacker. So just a really exciting prospect, and big to get him on campus for this game.
Yeah, the thing, when you start looking at guys like that, you start landing Tank Jones on top. But we haven't even talked about him in a while. But Noah Carter, those Wolfcomb candidates, and I'll tell y'all, I mean, I was watching Justin Hill Friday night, and I like Dawson Merritt. He's a good football player, but Justin Hill and Dawson Merritt, Noah Carter, I mean, they've got some different levels to their game and different aspects. Hill's going to be special. Dawson's going to fill out and be really good. But when you get to Tank Jones, on top of a 27 commitment, who's doing pretty damn good, Andrew.
Yeah, Jabarius Garr out of Viger. I mean, he's having an unbelievable sophomore season. I wanted to call him a junior. Senior. But man, this guy.
Not yet.
He has 9 sacks in was it 3 games or 4 games? 4 games. So he's having an unbelievable year. Has already been named, I think, the Mobile Optimist Club Player of the Month, Defensive Player of the Month. So he's having a ridiculous year. Him and Barack Willis, who out of Moody. So two really good 27 guys. There's going to be a big list of 27 recruits that are going to be on campus this weekend too. So we'll have a complete breakdown of those guys later on in the week.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I don't think it's ever too early to start working on guys that you can get on campus. And the thing about it is, I know people said, "Oh, they're 27," but we agreed right out of the gate. These were the 20. If you're taking 27s, these are the guys you want. These are the guys you want to be taking, guys you feel pretty confident. I'll tell you a guy I'm really interested to come back, and it wasn't nearly as dramatic as I felt it should be, but Michael Carroll coming back's huge, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Miami made a full court press, went all in. I mean, it never really got to the Bama fans' level of panic. I'm not sure why, but dude, Michael Carroll's a monster. And when you look at possibly losing Jaden Roberts and Tyler Booker, I mean, this is a guy that's a true freshman that I believe, and I'm gonna get y'all's opinion, could come in and compete right away for those openings. Joseph?
Yeah, Charles Power has been really high on him. Credit to him for his evaluation. He's been ahead of the curve with Michael Carroll going back to last fall, talking about the progress that he made as a junior. And I think the thing that we've kind of wanted to see is, will he take another step as a senior? And based on everything that we've seen from his tape at IMG Academy, he has. He's got a mean streak to him, plays very physical. He's got ready-made size, can walk into any college football locker room right now and look like he's a part of that group. And he's getting that development there at IMG Academy. Think about Tyler Booker and think about Evan Neal, some of those offensive linemen who have come from IMG Academy to Alabama. I know Michael's only spent a year or a few months, I should say, with IMG since the spring, but definitely encouraging that he's going through a program like that, playing against top teams like Central, in Phoenix City this upcoming weekend. It's good to get those reps in ahead of Alabama, ahead of enrolling at Alabama.
I got a name for you, Andrew Bone. Derek Smith. Is he going to show up? I mean, he's on the list. The coaches have told us he's coming in, and very quiet guy. Now, he was very quiet. This didn't start lately. He's always been a very quiet fella throughout the whole recruiting process. He committed to Alabama kind of out of the blue. When he flipped to Auburn, it was like a weird situation with, supposed to come to Bama, Auburn, then Bama, then didn't and flipped. Coming to Alabama this week, I think with his brother Eric. So what are your thoughts there, Andrew, assuming he does show up?
Well, it's big to get him back on campus. I think Alabama was expecting him in Tuscaloosa for the Champions Cookout the day after the Auburn's Big Cat weekend, and he didn't show and commits to Auburn or flips to Auburn, and we didn't really talk much about him since. And then season kind of came along. Spoke to his twin brother Eric, who's a wide receiver who was receiving an offer from Alabama in August. He said that he was going to be in Tuscaloosa for the Georgia game, and then Derek confirmed, and Derek's coach confirmed that he was going to be in Tuscaloosa as well. And I think the significance of that is Auburn's got a pretty big game, at home this upcoming weekend against Oklahoma. So getting to Tuscaloosa, going to Tuscaloosa instead of going to Auburn, pretty significant. Is it going to be a major difference in his recruitment? I think that's tough to say. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see how the weekend goes, how his communication goes with the Alabama staff. What position does he really want to play? Because now that he's gotten into the football season, playing on both sides of the ball, maybe he has a different feeling as to what position he wants to play, because Alabama recruited him as a safety, Auburn recruited him as a wide receiver. I think both schools will be open-minded about playing whatever, but he has strictly been recruited as a wide receiver from Auburn. So gonna be an interesting weekend regardless, and I think we'll know more about where things stand with Derek after this upcoming weekend.
I think Derek's good enough that if he says he wants to be a quarterback, they'll probably take him and just figure it out when he might be the quarterback at Auburn if he starts there. But I think that's just the guy you get on campus. When we were back early in the day early in our careers, again, back in the day talk, but Derek Smith was usually a quarterback, right? He was a quarterback on his high school team, and we're actually seeing more and more of these special kind of freaky type athletes that are actually able to play their position. If you're in the right situation, obviously he plays both ways. Fagans is another one. Andrew, you had a good story on Fagans coming for an official visit for the Missouri game, but there, a lot of times you'd see these guys not necessarily playing at their natural positions. Joe, give us some final thoughts before we get out of here on the magnitude of this visitors list. I don't think it matters as much who wins this game. to these kids. I think they're coming for the environment and the free food and pretty girls and have people take pictures with them. But the magnitude of these guys, like me and Andrew were discussing earlier, these aren't just guys coming in. Like Andrew, we're used to seeing 100 people on campus, but a lot of that's just local guys where you keep up the goodwill, do a high school coach a favor. We're talking triple digits possibly of guys that could, Bama could push for in different classes.
Absolutely. We talk about the talent from that 2025 through the 2027 group, the expected guys on campus. I think one of the storylines I'm really paying attention to is just the prospects committed elsewhere who are going to be stepping on campus. We talked about Derek Smith, who's going to be coming on campus, committed to Auburn. We recently confirmed Ivan Taylor, Michigan commitment, is expected to be on town. You could go to Bama Online, check out the full visitors list, but there are a lot of uncommitted prospects committed prospects in the 2025 group stepping foot on campus. And like Bone said, I think that's a really good point. Look, you'll see what to make of it after the trip. We'll be reaching out to all these guys, getting intel, seeing what the post-visit reactions are and where things go from there. But I think it's encouraging just to get these type of players on campus at this stage in their recruitments. It just shows that the door isn't shut to Alabama with a lot of these guys. So that's the one storyline I'm really paying attention to.
Andrew Bone, give us a final thought. And again, before we get Andrew's deep thoughts, that'll go way longer than they should. But his hat looks good, so we're going to give him some free reign here today. I like that light blue. You look good in it. Please, if you get a chance, give us a like and a subscribe. We appreciate everybody that listens to the content. We enjoy doing this. Be doing it even more consistent in the future as we figure more things out. And again, if you're not a member of BamaOnline.com, Georgia week, 50% off. We're worth half price. We're on that discount rack at a very good store at the Galleria, if that's still a thing. Andrew Bone, give us your final thought.
I think it's good to get a lot of your commitments back in town this weekend, guys that have not been to Tuscaloosa this season. Keelan Russell, Dejon Lee coming in all the way from California. Chuck McDonald also making his a trip back. Dawson Merritt, who took a visit to Nebraska a few weeks ago. I think getting some of these guys back on campus that are still out there, still taking some visits. Anthony Rogers, another one. Getting those guys back on campus in this environment, this atmosphere, around the coaching staff. I'm intrigued to kind of hear, what they have to say after. Are they going to continue to take visits? Because some of them do have additional visits down the road, or do they potentially shut it down? How much are they going to be recruiting some of these other kids that are going to be on campus to Alabama this weekend? So really watching to see how things go with all the Alabama commitments that are going to be on campus.
Well, again, Joe, did I get your final thoughts? Yeah, you went first, right?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can give you some more final thoughts if you want to.
I think final's over. I don't think you know what final means. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. You guys and gals, you do a great job. We look forward to seeing you on the round table, the Bama Online message board, which is, while we were doing this show, it's got 8 new discussions and 3 questions. One of them absolutely crazy, which we enjoy answering. But we will see you later in the week. We're going to have, before the game, we're going to have a little bit more in-depth recruiting weekend breakdown. And, of course, we'll have all the coverage you need on BamaOnline.com with the updates, the interviews, the nuggets, which is insider pieces on the kids that visit, plus updates with coaches, family, and players. So until we see you next week, thank you for being here. Andrew Bone, say goodbye.
Goodbye. Go check us out at BOL, and we'll have plenty of coverage and updates leading up to the game and afterwards.
Joseph Hastings.
Adios, mis amigos. And I messed that up.
Don't
do
ever
it again.
Let's say bye next time.
Yeah, don't ever do that again. Was that Italian?
I've got no idea what that was.
That was you. You went to the UK and came back speaking that language. Thank you, guys. We'll see you around.